Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being truly well-informed. Today, we're diving into Ukraine, but, maybe not in the way you'd expect.
Oh, how so?
Well, when most of us think about Ukraine, obviously it's the war with Russia. That's front and center.
Of course.
But what's really striking now, and this is news since the full-scale invasion started over 3 years ago, are these major internal political shifts happening inside Ukraine.
Okay.
Yeah, we're talking about widespread protests, people protesting against President Zelenskyy, against the parliament, the Rada.
Right.
And this is happening at the same time as a really crucial round of peace talks with Russia. It's quite a situation.
It really is. So our mission today, I think, is to try and unpack that. We need to look at this new law that seems to have sparked the protests.
Exactly.
Understand what the protesters are actually worried about, their core concerns. Then there's the international reaction, which sounds significant.
Very.
And then try to place it all in the context of, well, the ongoing war and these diplomatic efforts.
That's the plan. By the end of this, you should have those essential nuggets of knowledge to really get your head around this complex picture, and pretty quickly, too.
Okay.
So let's get into it. The first thing is just how, well, surprising these protests are. Their scale, really. They're happening across the country: Kyiv, Lviv, Dnipro, Odessa. Big cities.
Right.
And this is despite martial law, which, bans mass gatherings, so it feels unprecedented since the invasion began.
Absolutely. And the direct trigger, the thing that really set it off, seems to be President Zelenskyy signing this bill into law.
Mm-hmm.
It happened late Tuesday, July 22nd.
It was fast-tracked, right?
It was. Very quickly pushed through the Rada and signed. And that speed plus the content clearly touched a nerve.
Okay, so let's dig into the content. What specifically is in this law that's causing such widespread anger? What's the shift in power here?
Well, the core of it is that this new law gives Ukraine's prosecutor general more power.
And this is a political appointee, yeah, not someone elected.
Exactly. A political appointee gets significantly more control over two really key anti-corruption bodies.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the National Anti-Corruption Bureau, ADB, and the Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office, SAPO.
And these agencies, NADU and SAPO, they have a reputation, don't they?
They do. Historically, they've been known for being fiercely independent, really going after graft, corruption by public officials, regardless of who they were politically.
So seen as independent pillars against corruption.
Very much so. Crucial pillars in that fight.
It's just fascinating how quickly these internal issues can flare up, even with the country, united against Russia.
Yeah.
But why this bill? What was it about this specific piece of legislation that ignited such a strong reaction now?
I think there are really two main fears driving this.
Yeah.
Dual fears.
Okay.
First, there's a really strong concern about political retribution. Payback.
Retribution for what?
Well, critics are pointing very directly to a case back in April. An ABU charged Andrei
Smirnov. He was the deputy head in Zelenskyy's administration.
That's the one. Charged with money laundering, accepting a bribe. So people see this law and think, aha, this is a response to that. It's designed to stop those kinds of independent investigations.
I see. So a direct link being drawn there. What's the second fear?
The second one is, well, maybe deeper. It's a fear of sliding back towards authoritarianism. People are actually drawing parallels, worrying parallels, to the time of Viktor Yanukovych.
The pro-Russian president, yeah. Known for close ties to oligarchs, not exactly transparent governance.
Precisely. So there's this profound fear of, returning to a past they really fought hard to escape, where political influence just trumps independent institutions.
And this internal turbulence, it hasn't gone unnoticed outside Ukraine, has it?
Yeah.
What about the European Union? They're a huge supporter. How are they reacting?
Yeah, the EU's reaction has been quite strong. The 27 nations, they voiced significant concern.
Why so?
Well, the EU Enlargement Commissioner, Marta Kos, she went on social media pretty publicly
Okay.
and called the vote a serious step back. She was quite blunt.
Wow, a serious step back.
Yes. And she specifically emphasized that, quote, independent bodies like NABU and SEO are essential for Ukraine's EU path, and added that the rule of law remains in the very center of EU accession negotiations.
That's a really critical point, isn't it? The EU accession path.
Absolutely.
Because fighting corruption isn't just, a nice to have for them. It's a fundamental requirement to join the EU.
It is a core condition.
So this puts Kyiv in a really tricky spot. This internal move could directly impact their biggest foreign policy goal. essentially.
It certainly complicates things. It's that classic tension, isn't it? Balancing wartime needs, maybe centralizing power against those long-term democratic principles the EU insists on.
Right. Though some might argue, in a war, you need strong central control for stability.
That argument is definitely made.
Mm.
But the EU's message seems unwavering. Rule of law, independent institutions, these are non-negotiable for membership.
Has Zelenskyy responded to the protests and the EU concerns?
He has acknowledged the anger. He put out a statement saying things like, "We all hear what society is saying, and we see what people expect from state institutions. Ensure justice and the effective functioning of each institution."
So acknowledging it.
Yes, and he mentioned discussions about strengthening institutions, resolving contradictions, kind of general terms.
Didn't he also earlier make some claims about these agencies, something about Russian influence?
He did. He'd previously suggested there was, quote, Russian influence that needed clearing out, and also that some big corruption cases had been lying dormant at NABU and SAPO for years.
But without much explanation for that alleged influence.
Not really, no. It does highlight that tension you mentioned, governments sometimes using national security arguments to centralize control, potentially at the expense of independent oversight, which, it just raises this really important question for you, the listener, to think about. What does all this mean for building trust and effective governance within Ukraine, especially now during the war? And what are the ripple effects?
And all of this internal turmoil, it's happening just as these incredibly sensitive external negotiations are kicking off again.
Exactly. The timing is quite something. A third round of direct Russia-Ukraine peace talks is set to begin in Turkey.
When?
Wednesday evening, July 23rd. The Kremlin spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, confirmed their delegation is heading to Istanbul.
Okay, so talks are definitely happening. What's actually on the agenda? What are they talking about?
Well, the main focus, according to reports, will be these peace memorandums.
Memorandums, like initial drafts or outlines?
Sort of. Think of them as maybe foundational documents or frameworks that were shared during the second round. Ideas for potential terms of a peace deal down the line.
Right.
They'll also discuss more prisoner swaps. There have been quite a few recently, over 1,000 exchanged in the last couple of months.
Any hope for a ceasefire, though?
Seems like very little hope for a ceasefire coming out of these talks specifically.
Yeah, I remember Peskov saying before that Moscow wasn't expecting any kind of miraculous breakthrough.
He did. He called the two sides diametrically opposed, which certainly lowers expectations.
That's a pretty low bar.
Definitely. And Russia's core demands, they haven't really changed. They're still insisting on Ukraine giving up territory that Russia has seized.
Which is about a fifth of the country now, right?
Roughly, yes, about a fifth. Plus, they want Ukraine to abandon any ambition of joining the EU or NATO. Still.
Yeah.
And significantly downsize its military and make Russian an official language.
Those are just huge sticking points. They seem almost insurmountable from Kyiv's perspective.
They're extremely contentious, yes. Very hard asks.
So if we try to connect all these threads, what are the implications here? Ukraine is facing this significant internal dissent, this challenge to its institutions, while at the same time trying to negotiate with Russia under these incredibly tough conditions. It feels like a moment of, immense pressure.
It absolutely is.
This whole deep dive really throws into sharp relief the complex pressures Ukraine is under.
Yeah.
Fighting this brutal external war for its survival, while simultaneously grappling with these really critical internal debates about its own governance, about corruption, about its democratic future. It's a lot.
It is. And maybe a final thought for you to mull over is this. How does the perception of Ukraine's anti-corruption efforts, how strong or weak those institutions are seen to be, how might that affect its standing with allies like the EU?
Assess when trying to navigate peace talks and secure that long-term Western integration.
Exactly. How does internal reform, or the lack of it, impact external support and negotiating leverage?
And maybe for you, listening, what really stands out about this balancing act? How does a nation balance the immediate existential needs of war with that essential but maybe slower work of internal reform, building democratic institutions?
Yeah.
There are no easy answers there, obviously, but it's certainly something worth pondering as we watch these events continue to unfold.
Yeah.